peace with dying. I'm not afraid of it. I welcome it. And I believe 100% right time.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on Soul Awakenings. Today, I have the guest of Shandra. Shandra, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Okay, so let me start off. Now, this is an NDE. Um, let me just, can you give me, before you actually had the NDE experience, what was happening in your life as far as like spirituality and things like that? Like, did you have any spiritual beliefs? Were you atheist?
Actually, I grew up as a Mormon, FLDS, but before this happened, it was actually the weekend of laying my grandmother to rest.
Oh my, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And that kind of played into what happened to me.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, so you grew up Mormon. That's is or was your faith, and lead me up to what was happening with you that day. Like, it was, to explain to me what, right before or the day of how this happened.
Yeah. So I went home to my family's home, which is in BC. I live in Alberta, Canada. And I went home to my grandma's funeral. I was on my way back home to Edmonton, Alberta, and I had stopped at this hot spring to visit my cousin to kind of just see her before I left. And then I was on my way. I was on my way back home. I decided to pull over to a near side waterfall. It's kind of on the route back
Hmm.
home. Um, so I pulled over, stretched my legs. The waterfall is like right next to the road, the highway. So I went to stretch my legs and go for a little walk. And that is when it all happened.
Okay, so were you alone or was someone with you during this time?
I was alone, only
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then what happened?
So I I I decided to take some film, some video. I was too close to the edge. The rock I was standing on was totally safe. I was fine, but it's the one rock next to it was completely slippery, and that's the one that took me under. So I I went from one rock, stepped over to the other, and then all I can remember is falling down and into the river and the waterfall and washed me away.
Wow. Okay, so how deep was it where you fell in?
I would say it's a good 6 to 8 feet. And
Mm.
then I hit my head on a rock on the way down, and the water was so swift. It was June,
Hmm.
so the water, it's glacier ice, cold water. It just swept me away. I didn't even know like what to think or what to do. I was just in survival mode at that point.
Yeah, so it basically you were hopping from one rock to another. The
Yeah,
rock you jumped on was completely slippery, and
it
then the next thing you know, you're just being carried away downstream.
that's
How was there a lot of rapids?
it was so swift. The current was insane. I could not keep my head above water. I tried so hard. I was like in survival mode. I'm a strong swimmer. I've done like lifeguarding and swimming my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the steps to take to keep my head above water, but the water was stronger than me and I could not keep my head up. And I just knew I was gonna die. I knew that was my fate. And stupidly, I was thinking I need to save my phone because
Jeez.
that's the only thing I can use to call for
Call for
help.
help. Right.
Yeah, and so I was trying so hard to keep my phone in my hand and while I'm like struggling for air, breathing, trying to stay alive, I was also trying to just s- like keep hold of my phone, but I let it go. I focused solely on my health and to stay alive, but the water was stronger than me and I knew like in the back of my head I was thinking like hey no one knows where I am, nobody knows I took this route because there's two ways to get home and this was the scenic route you could
Mm-hmm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the way I was going. I told one person, my sister, but she had no idea I'd stopped for this waterfall. So in the back of my head, I was saying like, hey, I need to survive for my family because nobody's gonna find me here. Nobody's gonna know where I am or what is going on. And so that was what kept me going to to keep my head above water and keep taking breaths of air and stuff like that.
Wow. That's pretty intense. You had to be absolutely terrified.
I was, holy, it was insane. And like so crazy. Like probably the biggest shock of my life, most traumatic event I've ever been through. And I knew at this point the water was stronger than me and it was holding me down. It was like
Oh my.
struggling to keep me under, and I was struggling to stay atop it, but I could not. And I just kind of gave in. I accepted my fate. I knew that I would not survive this. So I can't, like, it was painful. The
Mm.
water entering my airways and my everything. I knew I was gonna die this way. So I kind of just accepted it. And I breathed in a lot of water just to kind of end the pain.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah,
it was that painful, the water entering your lungs.
it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life.
Oh
It
my
was
Lord, that's
insane.
horrible.
Yeah,
Wow. So you let go. And was there like a feeling of calm that came over you when you finally just sort of realized this is my fate and actually let go?
there was a feeling of calm, and once the pain stopped, then it was kind of like it was a feeling, no visuals, but a feeling of someone kind of wrapping me in a warm blanket and telling me everything is going to be okay and just like holding me. And my life did flash before my eyes, but it only reached until I was like about 8, 9 years old.
Mm.
And then I came to. And when I came to, I was on the edge of the river. My body was out of the water. No, like half of it. Half of my body was out. My head, I could breathe. I was coughing up water. At first, I thought like this is heaven. I was like, heaven looks just like earth. And and I had, again, no visuals, but I felt the comfort of my dad bringing me to shore, and like, no, like, it sounds bizarre, but like, I didn't hear anything, but I felt that they were speaking and talking while they're bringing me to shore and
Who's
pulling me
they?
out of the water. Yeah.
Who is they?
They are my uncles, I've discovered. I told my dad about this. So my dad had two brothers who passed away, which I did not know of. Like, I'm sure I've been told, but I
Maybe too
forgot
young.
about it.
Mm,
It didn't resonate with me at the time. But the first thing I thought when I came to was that my dad was looking for me, because when, like I said before, my life flashed before my eyes until
hmm
I was around 8 or 9. And at that point in my life, my dad was in search and rescue. And so when I came to, at first, I was like, oh, this is heaven. And then immediate shock. And the first thing I said was, I was screaming for my dad. I was like, Dad, help me. I was screaming so loud. And I just knew in my heart that my dad was coming to look for me, search and rescue. Like, they're coming for me.
hmm
And then
Could you have
I
also picked up maybe because they were his brothers, sort of that same energy that they share probably with your dad because because they are brothers in the same family. Maybe that's the vibe you were getting as well, do you think? Or
I think so. And I think also because we had laid my grandma to rest, I think she was the one that sent them and was like,
Ooh.
that's my grandchild, go save her, you know? But yeah, when I came to, I knew in my heart that my dad was looking for me. And that's the first thing I thought. And I felt like a 9-year-old girl again. And then I came to even more and realized what had just happened. Like, I fell in this waterfall, river took me down, and I had no idea how far I've gone. It was getting dark at this point.
Oh my.
It happened in the afternoon, 1 or 2 p.m. And now it was getting like really dark. And when I came to, I realized, like, no, my dad is not here. He's not
hmm
looking for me. He doesn't know. And I had to find my way back to my car. Thank God I had taken my I took my keys off of me to set them aside. I don't know why, but like, before I started filming, I thought maybe something might happen. I had
Hmm.
instinct, which is
Whoa.
crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
that alone is pretty wild.
yeah, I had a thought that something might happen, and I did it anyways, which is crazy, but
You got just enough premonition to tell you to put your keys somewhere.
exactly. So
Wow.
I knew to find my way upstream, and it was like a mossy cliff, kind of stumpy road to get back there. I had to climb up rocks and logs and anything in my way. And I was probably making my way back to my car for a good hour. It was
Wow.
that far that I've swept down the river.
Wow.
It was just
So I
insane.
bet you it was so you're saying it's probably I would say minimum at least a mile or two, don't you think?
I think so, yeah. Like,
Wow.
I have no accuracy to it, but
Hmm.
I know it was a good long while. I fought for so long. It felt like ages. I was keeping my head up. I was not gonna let it take me under. And I think hitting my head as well, I concussed
Hmm.
because that's what the ER said. Um, once I did make myself Once I did get back to my car, I went straight home, back to my parents, not my home in Alberta.
Hmm.
And I woke my parents up. I was like, Dad, I was screaming for you. Did you
Oh,
not hear me? And he
did
was
he?
like, No, what are you talking about?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It
Yeah, what you felt, I mean, I think in your mind maybe was the fact that he was search and rescue, but I bet you felt that same sort of masculine energy maybe from his brothers.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, that was insane to me. Like, I do remember a bright light
Hmm.
because that happened when I accepted my fate and I took a deep breath of water and I was just trying to end it all and then it
Hmm.
went all bright, super bright, and then it went all black. And
Hmm.
that's when my life flashed before my eyes and
So your life review, I mean, was it like everything? Did you sort of see everything up until nine?
I
Uh,
did. I did. That was
you,
insane. I saw like in the womb and
oh
then
my Lord.
the birth and then growing up and my multiple siblings, everything. And it was just insane to me. And so that's why I couldn't really focus on survival when I came to because I was focusing on what had happened to me during my childhood and it all came back to me like things I've forgotten about and things I didn't really know that I remembered.
Wow, that is incredible. So how long do you
It was.
think, I mean, I realize like it's probably hard to process because you're getting rushed downstream. You're, there's sort of this sense of panic. It's obviously hard to tell, how much time is passing, but if you had a guess, how long do you think that life review took? I mean, here, like physically. I mean, obviously, there's,
It
I
it
hear all the time how time is so different between here and the other side.
yeah,
So how do you? I mean, how long do you think it took? Like a couple minutes, and yet you had your whole life.
it was like within 30 seconds,
Oh my Lord!
but
Wow,
it
that's
felt like a lifetime. It, like I did the math. I arrived at this waterfall around like 3 p.m. and when I got back to my car it was 8.
wow.
So it was late, late, late night. But between all that happening, the swift current, that was a fast
I'm sure.
thing. Yeah. And within all that happening and getting back to my car, that was a good like hour and a half,
Hmm.
2 hours. Like I think within within a time span it was like 30 to an hour maybe. Like it was seconds, but in my mind it was like a
An entire
lifetime.
lifetime. Yeah,
It was insane. Like it was a sped up lifetime. I would say like 2 times sped up.
okay.
Yeah, cause
Okay.
it wasn't happening like as I lived it, but it was happening with some speed to it, you know?
Hmm. So in the life review, um, were you like still sort of like, did you get the impression like you were still in your body, or were you almost like an outsider watching it happen?
Definitely an outsider.
Wow. So it wasn't,
100%.
oh, 100. Okay. So it was almost like you were watching your life on a television or a screen or something.
Yes. And I knew I was watching it. I wasn't like reliving it. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was kind of in space. I felt like everything was dark around me, but at the same time, like I was reliving my life. But
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of like on a world vision television.
Mm.
Like, it was the universe and the skies around me displaying my life in front of me. Like, everyone says when they die, they see God and stuff, but I just saw space. Like, it felt
Yeah.
like space and the universe, and it was pretty comforting
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I was in space,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I've heard a million of these. It's actually not that uncommon. So the did was there, I mean, I granted, I realize you're only 9, so it's pretty hard to judge yourself when you're such a young child, but did you feel any of that? Like any like regrets or like, boy, I probably shouldn't have done that to Sally, or any thoughts like that, or was it just basically like a neutral observation?
I was just surprised, and I
Hmm.
was thinking about, like, my best friend who was my sister at the time, and I was like, "Where is she? Is she okay?" I don't know why I was thinking, like, "Is she okay? Did she
Hmm.
go through this with me?" But she did not, she wasn't there.
Right.
But she was my first thought, she was my younger sister, and and yeah, I was thinking about my dad and his team of search and rescuers.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I didn't think of any regrets or anything like that.
Okay. So you didn't
Uh
judge yourself or
no.
okay.
Like I was baptized at 8, which was weird to me because at 8 we have no sins to wash.
What about the babies that get it done every day in the Catholic Church?
Right? It's crazy.
Welcome to Earth, you sinner.
But yeah, since I was baptized at 8, I'm like, I have no sins. I have no
Yeah.
regrets. But I was thinking about who who I hung out with at that time in my life, which
Hmm.
who I don't hang out with anymore or even talk to anymore, unfortunately, because of life's ways, you
Hmm.
know?
Sure. Yeah, it happens. It is. It's just part of life sometimes. People sort of drift in and out of
Exactly.
our lives. Definitely. So,
Yeah.
I mean, wow, incredibly, I guess you washed ashore. Um, the blackness. So how long did the blackness seemed to last? And was it like I've heard, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just saying, I'm just repeating things I've heard before. So I have heard it being the like blacker than black, like the
It was.
blackest. Is that what you experience as well?
Oh, yes, 100%. And I
Yeah.
have no idea how long I was blacked out for, but, like, it went from bright to dark, and
Mm.
then my life happening, and then dark, 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 and that's when it came to. But the darkness was when I was kind of floating in space, and it was like the darkest darkness, and it wasn't scary, it was like wholesome and peaceful, and like the most serotonin I've ever felt in my entire life, like most peaceful I've ever been. It was magic, I swear.
Wow, that is so incredible. Yeah, I again, that's a pretty common experience that a lot of people say it is the blackest black, like you can't even describe how dark it is.
It
And
is.
but the same thing, but at the same time, it's not scary. you know.
It's
And
not
it's
scary. It's
eh,
not like a nightmare. It's it's similar to a deep sleep, but it's something so different from that as well.
mm, yeah, and it almost sounds like, and usually, again, usually what happens is after the blackness, eventually you'll start to see like a pin of light. But it almost sounds like what happened was you had died, and then, but then it was like the that process was interrupted because all of a sudden, you must have washed ashore, it started breathing again, and then
Yeah.
it was almost like you had just gotten started into the NDE, or the near death experience, or the
Mhm.
actual death experience, but then were sort of snapped out of it because
Yeah.
you were washed ashore.
Yeah.
What a miracle that was, huh?
And And what's crazy is I don't remember visuals, but I remember feelings. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was kind of given an option to come
Mm.
back or to stay. And within me, I felt like to stay and just forget everything. But I was forced to go back because um, it's not done, like, my story's not done, and I have more.
So you did get that intuitive sense, like almost like you did sort of
Yeah.
have a choice, but not really.
Yeah, I did, and it's insane because, like, nobody understands that, but it wasn't a visual, it wasn't like this Jesus person telling me, "Do you want to stay or do you want to go?" It was just a
Mm-hmm.
feeling of, "I don't want to continue, but I'm being forced to."
Mm. Yeah, it's like an innate knowing. I could relate to that. I mean, I think
Yeah,
I can understand that. It's just I mean, most of our lives are just sort of feelings and sensations, or we add thoughts to them,
right.
but what happens first is usually just those intuitive, like for example, like you walk into a room and you just get a bad vibe. And
Yeah,
then the thought comes in that sort of eventually says, this doesn't feel right in here. But it starts with that
mhm.
intuition, that's sort of an innate knowing.
Yeah, but it was 100% a miracle. There is no way I would have survived that. I 100% did take matters into my own hands, own
Mm-hmm.
hands to end the pain and suffering. And there's no way I would have survived that naturally. Just washing up on shore on my back when I began in a frontal position,
Mm-hmm.
and like swallowing water to end it all, and then like just waking up on my back like that. There is no way. It's a miracle, or as I like to call it, magic. um and first thought when I did come to was like, heaven looks a lot like earth, because
Right. Because you
I
didn't
thought,
go there.
yeah, I
Right.
thought for sure I was in heaven, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, it looks a lot like earth. And then I felt so cold, and I was like, wait, what just happened? And
Yeah.
that's when all the everything
Yeah,
happened.
that's just gonna say. I mean, what a to think that you couldn't even get your head out of the water enough to really get any kind of breaths. But
I
yet
couldn't.
yeah, but then somehow you're just like washed ashore with your upper body out of the water. And that, I mean, I realize the current probably slowed down and everything, but wow, that's especially like that you didn't like drag yourself ashore. You just were sort of pushed ashore.
Oh no, and this was deep water. Like there was branches on the side I kept trying to grab onto, but nothing would I couldn't catch anything. I couldn't for the life of me. I kept trying to touch the bottom to kind of try and walk my way out, but
Hmm.
nothing. This was the swiftest current I've ever felt. And I grew up swimming in rivers. I grew up swimming in lakes. everything, but nothing I could possibly try could keep me above. And I was just swallowing, breathing in so
Mhm.
much air that it just started to hurt so bad. And yeah, I just decided to give in because I kind of knew my fate at that point that,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. That had to be absolutely terrifying. I can't imagine the adrenaline rush you had there for a while
Oh
as you were
yeah,
fighting. I mean, oh my Lord, you know?
right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. So let me ask you this. So when, how did you process all this? Like, you did go back to your parents. Did you tell your parents sort of about like obviously you told them what happened, but did you tell them about the like life review type of thing or did you just leave that part out?
I did. I've told them everything. My my dad is huge in faith and religion and stuff, and he believes in miracles wholeheartedly. And then I told him that like two versions of himself were the ones that kind of dragged me onto shore to
Mm-hmm.
safety. And then he reminded me that he had two brothers, and it was exactly how I imagined it because one of them were his exact shape,
Oh wow.
um, and the other was kind of like silly, goofy, but also like strong, and his other brother. And that's exactly what I felt, not visioned or anything like that, but I felt a strong sense of two versions of my dad. And yeah, that's what he told me. So me and him kind of think that my grandma, who was recently laid to rest at that time, kind of
Mm-hmm.
sent his brothers to go fetch me out that water.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Uh I mean, I just wow, I can't imagine any of this. It's happening. It's so incredible. So, okay,
Mhm.
so let me ask you. So you say your parents, obviously, especially particularly your dad, were very open with this. Did you tell anybody else? And what kind of feedback have you gotten from other people?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first place I went was my parents' house, and then the next day my mom took me to the emergency room.
Mm,
And at the ER, no one would believe anything I said.
mm,
And they were just too busy. They didn't care to even listen to what I had to say.
mm-hmm,
But one of the like they checked me out for everything. Concussion, I had a concussion for sure. Um But one of the doctors, she told me, like, get yourself into therapy because this is gonna, not in these words, but fuck you up.
mm-hmm.
And I did not do that,
Okay.
but I am now. But
Okay.
yeah, she was really the only one who listened to me because all the others were like, "No, that didn't happen. Like you're hallucinating. You had a concussion. This happens with concussions." And everyone was always, the first question was, "Who was with you?" And it was always no one
Mm-hmm,
physically. There was no one physically with me. It was me by myself. Mentally, emotionally, there were beings, not
mm-hmm.
people. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you learned your lesson not to do that type of thing by yourself
Right.
anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's pretty easy to learn the hard way.
It
But anyway, okay, so yeah, so you are getting some therapy, some counseling to sort of talk about the things that you experienced.
I am now. For a year after it happened, I lived invincibly.
Mm,
I had this invincible personality mindset that nothing could kill me, that I'm fine, and I completely destructed my life. Like everything went downhill from the NDE. But
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think things went downhill?
I don't know. It's insane to me. I do not know this question because I was given a second chance, and you'd think I would not take it for granted, but
Yeah.
I have done the opposite. I've destroyed my life in the worst ways possible. But
Wow.
yeah, but recently I became conscious and now I'm realizing like, hey, get your shit together. This shit
Yeah.
does not happen. You would have been dead, but you're
Yeah,
not.
well, you were brought
So
back for a reason, so
that's right.
start figuring out what that reason is.
Thank you. Yes.
For
And I
sure.
am. I'm doing much better now. Like for a good year or two, I was downhill, but
Hmm.
now I'm like, no, I need to to find that reason why.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's a good one. So and and it doesn't have to be major. I mean, that's one of the things that I've learned is, I think there's this belief in us that we have to do something huge or major or like, organize some like, some peace rally or something. And it doesn't have to be that.
Right.
Definitely
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that extreme. Little things every day help people,
Mhm.
you know.
Have you experienced an NDE?
I did not go through an NDE. I actually went through like a spiritual awakening, like a really intense one.
Okay.
And it felt like I went through an NDE, like had a lot of similar experiences.
Right.
But no, I have not. But I've sort of been fascinated with this stuff ever since. So that's why
Yeah, yeah.
I even started this podcast, just because I
Was it
enjoy
DMT?
a what?
DMT?
I'm not sure what that is. What is a DMT?
DMT is it's a drug.
Oh, no, it was not drug related.
Oh, it
No,
wasn't really.
no, it was not
So
drug related. No.
what? That's
Yeah.
insane because
Well,
I hear
I
of
have
all
a
these.
I have a video on it if you want to watch it. It's on this channel.
I
But
will watch that. That's so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's just like one of the things that I noticed when I was listening to a lot of the NDEs was that it sound not exactly like there were things like I didn't have a life review or anything like that, but there was a
Yeah.
lot of similarities and then how you change afterwards, which was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you next was, I mean, I guess you did sort of have this sort of invulnerability complex and everything, but as far as spirituality goes, or spiritually speaking, has it grown? Like, do you feel closer to, like the universe and God now? Or did it, maybe it didn't
I
impact you at all? I don't know.
I feel super at peace with dying now. Like I used to be super afraid and scared. I think that's what kind of energized or fueled my personality of I'm indestructive. But
Okay.
yeah,
So,
so I grew up super Mormon religious, and there was always like a man in the sky kind of God, what I was taught. And then I
hmm
kind of had my own vision of spirituality and religion when I was growing up. I I I think it's agnostic, like believing that there's no belief. But
hmm
but yeah, I became super spiritual. I always said I believe in nature and the sun and the universe.
so this is before the NDE. These are your thoughts, right?
That's right.
Hmm.
I've always been super spiritual. Um, um, and I still am. I'm so spiritual now. Like, and I have peace with dying. I'm not afraid of it. I welcome it. And I believe 100% right time. When you die, there is a time. And
Hmm.
that was not my time. So that's why I'm still here. Thank God. But if everyone dies when it's their time now. And I also believe in miracles and I believe in magic because I think miracles are magic. And yeah, I'm just super spiritual. I have a lot more love for nature and the universe. And I don't think like I never believed in hell or heaven, but well, maybe when I was younger, but now I think people go to space because
Okay.
that's kind of what happened to me is I went to space and
Hmm.
now like that gives me comfort just knowing like people that I've lost, they're just up there in space.
Yeah, maybe another dimension or another realm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay,
What about
so
you?
uh as far as what? Believing in God?
Like when it comes to dying, like do you believe in afterlife or
Oh yeah, I do. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what happens, but I know
that's right.
I just think our consciousness, our awareness continues. Like
Yeah,
death is an experience just like any other experience that we have, but I think our
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I just think our conscious awareness just continues to the next, whatever's after hanging out in
Yeah.
the body for a while.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So now God isn't the old man in the sky. So what is God to you?
God is sunshine, the moon, stars, um, nature when it talks to you, wind, hurricanes, air, thunder, lightning, everything, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's God to me. It's no longer man in the sky.
Yeah. I think that's even the problem now. It's like people, including myself, sometimes I even have a resistance to the word God just because it's so ingrained that it's just this old man that just controls everything and
Watching your every
yeah,
move.
watching move and casting damnation down on everyone.
Mhm. That's right.
Uh yeah, right. Okay, so do you have any like final words for people that maybe are watching this? Like, maybe they're watching this to get some peace because they lost someone or a loved one or you know, maybe they're just uncertain about the afterlife. Do you have any messages for those people?
I I think look at the stars more. Look at the stars and look at the sky a lot more because people kind of forget about stars now, especially if they live in a city and it's super congested or
Hmm.
cloudy. But they're feeling like at peace and they're not in a bad place. If if somebody lost someone close to them, they're at peace. They are not struggling. And if that person hasn't really reached out to you after their death, like just look at the sky if you want to kind of resonate with them or feel their comfort or something.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. And you're right. There's so much light pollution. One of the coolest things I've ever seen was it was a really clear night, and it was in my 20s, but we happened to be up in the mountains, and there was no light. And for the first time in my life, I actually saw the belt of the Milky Way galaxy, and it was
Wow.
the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Like I was so like I couldn't stop staring at it. I was so
Yeah,
dumbstruck.
yeah,
And we don't get to
that,
see that anywhere usually.
yeah. That's the thing too, is like, also around here, I don't know where you are, but the Northern Lights or Boreals, whatever.
Or borealis, yeah.
Yeah, they're so much more prominent now these days, which I've only ever seen them when I was probably like that same age, 8 or 9. But now I see them yearly, which is
Hmm.
crazy because they never used to show up. But I think that's a huge thing with like loved ones who are lost. Like they're just coming down to be seen.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Do you have any last words? Do you have do you have a web page or anything or
Yeah, you could follow me on Instagram, Shandra Darling. Chandra spelled with a SH and then darling, like darling.
okay.
Yeah.
All all right. Well, Sandra, I thank you so much for getting on here and sharing your story with me and for everyone really and for the courage to do that because I know although people are coming around in society like when you went to the hospital, there's still a lot of people that just will completely shut you down. So it does take courage to step up and talk about these things. But I think the more people that do it, the more people are like you that are gonna, come around and feel comfortable enough to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Hi everyone. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time.